Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. Before we get started, let me just say that we get it. Personal development can be hard, but you don't have to do it alone. Project Endure has been on a mission to create a supportive and inspiring community of people, all striving to be better together. Head down to the link in the show notes and join the Hard Things Club so that we can do hard things together. And if you're already a member, invite a friend and spread the love. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome back to the Project Endure podcast, episode 201. We have myself, Joe Rinaldi, and in the great state of Tennessee, we have a very, very special guest, Roni Glassman. Roni, how are you?
I'm well, Joe. How are you doing?
I am also doing well, and I am so excited to talk with you today for a number of reasons, but I'll throw this out there before I let you introduce yourself to people. I came across your page on social media, I want to say a year or so ago. And the thing that stood out to me above everything else was just the energy that you show up with. Like off the charts, unreal, like you jump off the page. And so I'm like, I have to talk to her. So here we are. And with that being said, for people who don't know you, how would you introduce yourself?
Well, I like that you say that I jump off the page because I'm picturing myself in a lot of my videos. I literally am like sometimes jumping off of stuff. So thank you. That's a very sweet compliment. Yeah, I guess I would introduce myself as a physical therapist first, a new mom also. Recently, that's like just in the past 5 months, and a small cash-based PT clinic owner as well here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Also a podcaster and a content creator as well. So you probably came across my page if it was a year-ish ago, kind of when everything started to pop off, which I guess now it's been maybe more like 2 years. But I love to also create content in the, I don't like to say wellness space, but more so specifically physical therapy space, and educate people online about what it looks like to own your own business, what it looks like to quit your corporate PT job, what exercises are we doing, what does it look like to be a new mom, all the things. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Yeah, you do it, and you do a great job with all of that. And we have a bunch of things in common that we'll talk about. But first, let me ask you this. If someone came across your social media page, what's one misconception that they might have about you? Something that they would assume or think, oh, it's always easy for her, or she's always got the energy, or XYZ. What's a misconception?
I would say the misconception might be she does a really good job planning her content out and she must have a lot of help because I do it all myself and I also don't plan it very well. So, uh, I get questions from people like, how do you like, what's your content calendar look like? I don't have one. I'm actually working on that right now. ChatGPT is in the background on my phone today. One of my goals was to like, let's organize this a little bit better. So I think it might come off more organized than it actually is internally in my brain. But that's okay. That's kind of fun. I like to just randomly get inspired and then make things based off of what I'm thinking. However, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. I think it's really helpful to have more of a schedule. So, yeah.
Well, and I think a theme that might come out as we talk about, quitting a corporate job, starting your own thing, because again, that's something you and I share in common, is you don't always need to have it all figured out right up front. I mean, a lot of times, if not most of the time, you don't. You start, you take action, and you get clear as time goes on. And so
Oh, yeah.
you've had a lot of success on social media. If it hasn't been the planning slash, scheduling, what do you think has contributed to the fact that people gravitate toward you and your content?
Probably like what you were saying when you first introduced me. I think it's the energy that I bring to it. And that's just kind of how I am as a person, I think. Just letting your personality shine, whether it is an energetic personality or somebody that's funnier or somebody that has a different flair. Uh, Not trying to be this very censored, very straight-laced person when you're on the internet, I think is helpful. I think it attracts the people that you want to attract. So, yeah, just having your personality shine through the content in ways that are interesting to people and are eye-catching and get people to follow like you.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's hard sometimes to really let your authentic self shine through because anytime you do that, whether you realize it or not, you're opening yourself up to some level of rejection, right? Whether that's somebody who doesn't like your content or posts that comment or unfollows. And a quick funny story from my journey on social media. I really got into creating content, I'd say back in 2016, 2017, when I was just starting PT school. And it was all physical therapy content. It was how to do this exercise, how to do that exercise, very rigid, structured. And one day, maybe a few years in, I thought, I really want people to know like who I am. So I posted just a headshot. It was the first time I'd ever done that. And it was like, this is who I am. And I lost like 40 followers. And I was like, oh, gut punch. Yeah. Well, in hindsight, right? People who were following me weren't following me for that. So I probably popped up and they were like, who's this guy? Unfollow. But there's a certain level of that. Do you feel that fear that is so common that stops people from posting authentically?
I think I maybe did in the beginning, but it was short-lived because I started the Rehab with Roni account in like 2022 and nobody followed me. My mom liked all my videos, would comment, text me, loved your content. And I was just very quick to realize no one is seeing this. And for that reason, it doesn't matter. Like the only person that's thinking about my content this much is me. Like nobody else is laying in bed at night, like, "Oh, what's Ronnie gonna post?" It's all me. I'm putting the pressure on myself. You know what I mean? No one is gonna see it or care. And then by the time they do see it, like if it gets enough traction and you gain a following, there is a level of respect. Like, oh, this is cool. I love what she's doing. So I think maybe a little bit in the beginning. I was struggling to come up with ideas and didn't really know how to show up on the internet. But I was kind of backed by my profession. I was like, well, I'm a physical therapist, so I have that going for me. And I have like a background in dance, so I can be kind of fun.
Hmm.
And I'm just gonna do this and see what happens. And I think maybe I remember one of my brothers being like, oh yeah, how's that content creation thing going? And I'm like, yeah, you know what? It's fine. And they're kind of giving me a hard time. But now, 2 years later, it's working out really well. And it's like nobody cared that much except me. So
Great.
just remembering that is very helpful.
It's a great lesson, and it's cringe until it's not, right? Like, it'll feel a certain way until it doesn't. And I think that's a good point for people out there to take away, even if it's not on the social media side of things, right? Put yourself out there, do your thing, and you never know what happens.
Yeah, and the more exposure too, like just the first post is scary. Like when you posted that headshot, you're like, oh, this is terrifying. I lost followers. But the more you just expose yourself to that scary feeling, the less scary it becomes. And then you just kind of are almost immune to the comments or, the shares or what people are saying about it. You're like, whatever, I'll just post another thing tomorrow and it'll get lost in the abyss of social media. Like no one cares. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that has helped me in the past is perspective. It's zooming out, and I think the further you zoom out, the less scary things feel here and now. And
Mhm.
for anyone listening, I'll ask you a question, but the question I'm going to ask you, I want people listening to answer in their minds. Uh, do you know the names of your great great grandparents?
No.
I don't either. I don't either. And I would imagine most people don't. If you thought of the names of your great great grandparents, congratulations. That's so impressive.
Yeah,
But my
family lineage is very important to you. That's incredible.
yeah, but my point is, right? Those were living humans who had something to do with your specific existence. They are important in the grand scheme of your world, and you don't even know their names. You probably don't know what they did for a living. You don't know their problems, their highs, their lows. And so in 100 years, probably less than that, people are going to forget about you and me in a lot of ways. So why not just go for it, right?
Yeah, that and my great grandparents didn't have access to the internet. So picture this. My great grandkids could go back and be like, look at Rehab with Ronnie. She was such a baller.
That too. Yes.
The legacy will live on for much longer.
Yes, until we have, I don't know, maybe in 100 years, they're like, Instagram, what's that? It's like the equivalent of a VCR. I don't know.
Right, right. Yeah, they're like, "What's we don't have Instagram. We downloaded our consciousness into something else. We don't even live on Earth anymore." But yes.
If you're listening to this podcast in the year 2200, let us know if you could hear us. But with that being said, I'll kind of transition us to the first big question that I ask everybody. And you can take this in whatever way you want, take your time with this answer, because it's a big question. When you look at your life as a whole up until this point, what's the hardest thing that you've ever had to handle that you did not get to choose for yourself?
Hmm. Hmm.
It's a
Hardest
tough one.
thing. Yeah, hardest thing I've had to handle that I didn't get to choose for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I guess we'll go real deep real quick. I don't even think I've ever talked about this on my podcast before. When I was 13, I I struggled pretty hard with an eating disorder, which I guess you could say like I did choose for myself, but when you're 13, like how much are you really consciously choosing? That was hard. That was a tough thing for me to go through. There were a lot of things going on in my life that I think they manifested in this thing that I decided to give myself, although it wasn't really a choice. And it took a while to come back from that, but I I guess you could say I guess I would say I'm thankful for it because it gave me a perspective I wouldn't have otherwise. So yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, I appreciate you going there. And
Yeah.
I've talked about this with other guests that have shared similar things, but
Mhm.
I went through a season of disordered eating, I would call it, in college. And it was a weird time because, like you said, I didn't choose it on purpose for me, but it kind of found me and I latched onto it. And it was a
Mm.
kind of a hard thing to navigate because you realize you're in it, but at the same time, you don't or you don't want to. And
Mhm.
so I'd be curious for you if you can think back to, teenage years and 13-year-old Ronnie, what was it? What was it like to recognize, okay, this is maybe not the healthiest thing or the best thing, and I just don't know how to get out of it.
Yeah, I remember the recognition part because I think this is very common in dancers also. I will say that. I've seen it a lot in people that have a gymnastics background, a dance background, something that is very physique forward in terms of like how you look matters a lot and how you perform in the sport. And so I was in a dance class and I remember thinking, wow, I finally look really good. In that same dance class, the owner of the studio came up to my mom and was like, we can't have Ronnie back until she looks healthier. Like she's not looking good.
Wow.
And so my mom told me, like, we're done with dance until you get healthy, basically. And so that combined with I remember waking up one morning and I think I had a show that day. I think I had a Nutcracker show. And I remember just like feeling my bones and being like, this feels like a little too bony. And 13-year-old me knew that. I was like, this is just not, I think I've gone a little too far. So I'm glad that I had the wherewithal to know that. And then I was able, I think I had the tools to make a change. I knew it was very basic. I was like, I'm not eating enough. I need to eat more. And fortunately for me, I didn't have to go through extensive care or treatment. I was just kind of like, okay, I know how to make myself be smaller. I don't need to be any smaller. I'm going to start eating food again. And it was just kind of like this, okay, I know what to do now. So I'm thankful for that. So yeah, that was kind of the journey. What was it like for you?
You know, I played sports all my life. I walked onto the football team in college and had an injury that forced me to stop. And so I was kind of at this crossroads of like, okay, my whole life I'd been an athlete. And then all of a sudden, I'm no longer on a team. I don't have practice. There's no structure
Mhm.
schedule. And so I just latched on to spending hours and hours and hours in the gym. And I felt like the only thing that I can control in a season that had a lot of things outside of my control happening, the only thing I can control is, what I did with my body, what I ate, how I exercised. And I'm a very extreme person. And so naturally, all of that brought me to too much time in the gym, restricting food. And, it resulted in me thinking I was looking really good, but in reality, probably being malnourished in a lot of ways and just not
Mm.
not feeling the best or performing the best. And so it was probably a couple years where I was in that, in and out of it. And, it wasn't until I met my now wife in grad school where things 100% turned around because I started feeling like myself again. And I had this love and care and support from somebody else that allowed me to do the same for me. And
Hmm.
I'm always curious when people struggle on the eating side of things, like what was the root, or like where did it come from? Or have you ever thought back to like was it a self-worth thing? Was it a control thing? Was it both? Was it neither? Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, I haven't like I said, I didn't ever have to go to really therapy or anything like that. And that's not something I'm like, oh, I pride myself in this. I never had to go. I just kind of felt like I figured it out on my own.
Mm.
But if I look back and try to psychoanalyze, I would say it's probably exercising an element of control for sure. Which kind of makes sense for my personality. I do like to be in control. So was it same for you?
Oh yeah. I think anyone who goes to pursue a graduate degree in physical therapy has a certain element of I'll call it type A ness,
Yes.
like right, like wanting to be organized and control on top of things. And that's a great quality. It's a great characteristic. I'm very grateful for it. And taken to any extreme, sometimes it's not the best.
Hmm.
And so to transition here a little bit, that was one of the hardest things you've ever had to handle. But I'm sure you've also done some really hard things. And I know at least two things from our very brief interaction that I would love to hit on, but I'll ask you the question and see what you come up with first.
Okay.
What's the hardest thing you've ever done on purpose? And why did you do that thing?
See, I guess it depends on your definition of hard because one could argue that quitting your job and then having one patient on your schedule the next week and being like, I actually am not making any money. Like, I don't know what I'm doing is hard. But in retrospect, that wasn't hard for me. It was exciting.
Mm,
But the reframing is an interesting, like, now that I've had a year and a half, 2 years to mull it over in my mind, I'm like, that wasn't hard. That was amazing. But I think in the tip and like when everything was coming to a peak, that was hard for me. But again, like I chose that route, and so I think that was also a very empowering feeling. I was like, well, this will be difficult, but I also wanted to do this, and so let's not bitch about it. Let's just try and figure it out.
yeah. So if I had to set that aside for a second, because I do want to dive in there, what's another answer to that same question? What's the hardest thing you've ever had to do on purpose?
Go to PT school.
Okay.
That's a good one too. Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about it, but let's start with why PT school. And I could guess, right, just because dance background, I'm assuming you like helping people, XYZ, but
Rah, rah, rah. Yes. Yes.
what led you to PT?
I just really was like allergic to a desk job. I knew that about myself. I like to be on the move. I like to be on the go. I like talking to people. I feel like I'm a pretty good communicator. And so I wanted to exercise those skills. My mom was in healthcare as a nurse. And so I was somewhat interested in it. I had an aunt that was a physical therapist, thought she was pretty cool. I had a very like skimming the surface knowledge of what physical therapy was because I never went to physical therapy. Like, knock on wood, never had an injury that forced me to be there. I just kind of was intrigued by the profession. And it wasn't until I was in Atlanta doing observation hours that I was like, oh, this, I could definitely do this. It was the interactive and having a different patient every hour, half hour, and yeah, having that hands-on, making a difference. I thought about med school, but I was like, I've never had a great experience with my doctor, so maybe I could be the difference, maybe I wouldn't be. So yeah, physical therapy just seemed like a nice little that in between of the Venn diagram of like helping people, hands-on, medical.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, school itself is it's rigorous, right? It's a doctorate level program. There's a lot to it. What was hard about that for you? Or if somebody listening is thinking about maybe it's physical therapy school, maybe it's just a graduate program in general. What were some of the hard parts for you?
Yeah, and actually as you're asking me this, I'm thinking the hardest thing I've done on purpose was not um was not going through physical therapy school, it was getting into physical therapy school. I think
Hmm.
that's way harder. Like once you've crossed over that bridge and you're in it, you're like, okay, I will graduate. I have what it takes. I have the tools. Getting in was the hardest part. And I think it's a combination of all the prerequisites you need, all of the observation hours, and then all of the stress about like what happens if I don't get in. Yeah, that mental just like race that you're running all of the time. I mean, for probably my whole entire junior and senior year of college, I was like, what's my backup plan? What happens if I don't get in? What if I suck?
Mm.
Um, that is the hardest part because you just put yourself through the ringer to try and convince yourself that you're going to make it. So, to people that are applying to programs like that, I would say just do your due diligence and get a wide range of experience. I think what helps me get in early admissions were the wide variety of like hours I had spent in other facilities doing observation, and then also some pretty solid interview skills. So practice your interviews. I don't know if you guys had to do interviews for PT school, but that was my bread and butter. I was like, if I can just get in there, they'll let me in.
I could just get in front of someone. They'll let
Yes,
me. Yeah.
exactly.
So, okay, so you go to school, you get into school, you go to school, you graduate. So, tell me a little bit about what happened between graduating and then starting your own business.
Ooh, well, I worked for a company that is local to Chattanooga. I mean, they're big now, they're in many, many states, but I like to call it my corporate PT job. Had a pretty decent experience. I was there for almost 2 years working in a clinic that it was just me and a clinic director. So I didn't have too much volume. It definitely wasn't my ideal volume. Like I was definitely seeing more patients than I wanted to per hour, but it was a fantastic learning experience. I mean, I definitely got the reps in and just learned a lot as a new PT, which I think that experience is so valuable.
Yeah. I don't know how it was for you, but I'll just share one of the things that sparked me leaving my job to start my own thing. Um, and this is, if you're listening and you've listened to all of the 200 previous episodes, then you've heard this story. But if not, uh, I was working at a clinic. We were seeing, a patient every half an hour. It was relatively high volume. And I got to the end of a day and I had the 12 to 8 shift. So this was 7 p.m. Someone came in for an evaluation. I sit down with them in a private room, and I always love to ask people, tell me something about yourself not related to physical therapy. And the funny part about that is it always relates back to why they're there in some way, shape, or form. Because when you're not feeling yourself physically, you're not feeling like yourself overall. So, anyway, this patient started crying, just bawling. And for the next hour, I listened to this patient talk about how their cat died of feline leukemia and their other cat was really sick. And that was basically all they had in their life. And they were coming in for neck pain. And so we got to the end of that hour. I'm like closing up shop. I'm ready to get home. And I think about the note that I'm going to write. I'm like, I didn't do anything. I sat here and I listened. And so I can't really bill for much. So I filled out my note. And the next day I got pulled into the manager's office, and the conversation was like, you can't do that. Like, you need to bill for our time. Like, you need to do tests, you need to give exercises, XYZ. And I tried to explain, like, hey, in this scenario, that's not what this person needed today. Like, this person needed someone to be there and to listen. And long story short, they got better in 4 or 5 total sessions. A lot of it was stress related, and we built great rapport. But I realized in that moment, like, this system is not set up for me to do my thing the way that I want to do it. And I needed to leave. What was the realization for you that led you to, take the leap and start your own thing?
That's cool that you have one specific situation that you remember being like, this is the pivotal point. I don't think I have that. I think mine was I cared a lot about my patients in the same way. I was like, I really want them to get better. I don't feel like I'm getting the as many touch points as I need with them to make enough of a difference because there's more than just low back pain going on and a lot that we can discuss that I'm qualified to discuss. And I think it was more so, honestly, I'm going to give him a lot of credit. I think it was my husband because I would be laying down at night and I would not be able to sleep. I'd be like stressed out about my next day and how I'm not going to have time to have this conversation with so and so. And I'm up late because I'm finishing my notes. And he was just kind of like, didn't you go to school for like a really long time? Aren't you supposed to really like this job? And I was like, you have a point. Yeah, yeah. What am I doing? And so it was just over the course of many months of many late night conversations of us being like, what does this look like in 10, 15 years? Am I still going to be doing this? Because if so, I'm not going to be the same person, and not in a good way. I think it was that just having a good partner that can kind of help you see it, like you were saying before, a little zoomed out. Like, what the hell's going on? Why do you hate your job so much if you went to school for 7 years? Like, can't there be another way? Can't you treat people a different way? And that is how I ended up where I am today.
Yeah. So let's talk now about building a business and starting something. I know for me, it's had its ups and downs, and it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made, right? This is year 5 of that, and I would never go back and do it differently. But it's been challenging. And so I'm curious for you. Tell me about the beginnings of your business and what was, challenging about it.
Well, the challenging part was me thinking, like, I can't do this. I just genuinely thought, who do I think I am? Like, all I am is a physical therapist. I'm not a business owner. I didn't go to business school. That was a big challenge. That was a mental obstacle I really had to overcome over many months. But I would say in the beginning, it started very organically. Like, I was still working my corporate PT job, and I was also treating people from the CrossFit gym that I was going to on the side on the weekends after my regular work shifts. And that's kind of when my husband started to be like, "Hey, these people are coming to see you outside of regular work hours. What if this is your caseload? What if this is your ticket out of the corporate PT world?" And so in the beginning, it was really bare bones. I was working in a leased out gym space, like private little room, and people were coming to see me. And like I said in the beginning, I had one patient on my schedule when I quit my job. And that can sow a lot of doubt inside. I was like, I don't have what this takes. But by the end of the week, I had 3 people on my schedule. And I was like, okay, this is growth. And yeah, from there, it has consistently grown. Definitely didn't know what the hell I was doing in the beginning. And I'm just kind of learning on the job, which I think, as you've probably experienced as well, when you meet other business owners, it's a lot of the same. Like, you have to figure out a lot of it as you go. And the hardest part is just quitting and thinking this is going to work eventually.
Yeah. Well, I like to say that ready is a decision, not a feeling.
Hmm.
And if I waited until I felt ready, I would have never left. And to think on paper, you had one patient on your schedule that first week. On paper, my mind goes to if I don't know you or the context, I think that's not a great business start. That's not, that's not looking good. But you have to start somewhere. And I'm curious what you would go back and tell Ronnie from that first week. If you could go back and just say anything you want, knowing how it's played out so far, what would you tell her?
Yeah, I would be like, you just keep on doing what you're doing because it's going to be fine. And I kind of had this underlying sense that it was going to be okay. And I will say, I come from a fortunate situation where I was already married, health insurance was taken care of. My husband was like, I can pay our mortgage, like it's okay. I had to get a PRN job to make ends meet, but even then, when everything was kind of blowing up, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I definitely felt deep down that it was going to be okay. I was like, if I can get one person to come in, I can 10x that. I can get 10 people to come in, and then I can get 15 and then 20. And so, yeah, I would just tell myself to keep on keeping on. And I will say this, because you asked what it was like in the beginning. I forgot to mention, you talk about like feeling ready. I didn't really, I guess I kind of had a choice, but the corporate job I was working found out that I was seeing people on the side, and they kind of made me make a choice. They were like, you either work here full time and you stop seeing these people, or you quit and you keep seeing these people. And I was like, okay, well, bye. And so that was sort of a forced quit, but it was definitely like the fire under my ass I needed to get started, which
Yeah.
a lot of people don't get the luxury of having something just kind of cut off, right? They're like, oh, but everything's going so well at my job right now. Do I make that jump? So it's like it's a negative, but it was also a positive.
That's so cool that you can see it that way, that that seemingly bad thing ended up being a great thing. Did that strike you right away, or did that take some time to realize, hey, this is a good thing?
I think Yeah, in the moment I was just I think I was grateful for it. I was like, okay, I have been turning this idea around in my mind for a while. Now that they found out about it because I posted about it on social media, I don't have a choice really. It's time to make the jump. Like there's going to be no other situation where this is just going to be very black and white.
Mm.
So, yes, I think I saw it as like a necessary end. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
here we go.
So I know what I'm about to ask you is a really hard question, not because it's a hard question within itself, but because it's going to require you to step outside of yourself for a second and really try to explain what's underneath how you operate. So here's my thought. You, sure, you had doubts. I'm sure you were scared. There are things that popped into your mind. But from this conversation so far, and from what I know about you through social media, you're a very positive, optimistic, I can do this kind of person, right? Like, I'll make it work. I'll figure it out. Like, oh, that worked against me. I'm going to use that to light a fire underneath me and work hard, right? That's not how everybody operates. And I know it's going to be hard to step outside of yourself because I think you and I share a similar mindset. And it's just the way it is, right? It's just how our brains work.
Yeah.
But for someone who doesn't think like that, can you give me like the foundation underneath that as to why you're able to think in an optimistic way, why you're able to believe in yourself that you'll figure it out?
Mm. Hmm. Yeah, I feel like I'm on like a virtual therapy session right now. I'm like, let's break this down. Why do I think the way I think?
Yeah.
I'm gonna come at it from an angle of mom mode
Yeah.
because I've been thinking a lot about this just in terms of, I mean, my baby's 5 months old. I'm like, I'm not parenting right now, but I'm curious how the personality traits that I have are going to be passed down to her. Are they going to be like this genetic predisposition to just be a happy person? Is it going to be the way that I raise her? How much of it is just like a combination of the two?
Mm,
And I saw something online yesterday or the day before, and they were talking about how a lot of parenting success comes from an environment that is high expectations, but also high warmth and
mm,
encouragement. And I genuinely think I will commend my mom and dad for this. I think they did a really good job of setting really high expectations for all five of us. I'm one of five kids. I'm the middle of five kids, which is like a fun place
whoa.
to be. I know. And so they like very high expectations always, but also very warm, very loving, very positive people, especially my mom. Very high energy. She's actually downstairs right now. I should have her come up. You can see where it comes from. But that, I think, if we're talking about zooming out, like where does it come from? I think it's from growing up in an environment like that. But I won't say that it's something that can't be learned, right? Like, so if you grew up in a situation that was not as fortunate and maybe your parents had a different take on how you should be raised and you're struggling a little bit with feeling the confidence or just turning things and spinning them into a positive light, again, zooming out is a very helpful mental tool. Like, how much does this really matter? How big of a risk is it actually? What are the positives versus the negatives and all the outcomes and how this could turn out? A lot of times it's going to end up if we're talking about making the leap and doing something for yourself business wise, like the positives are going to outweigh the negatives a lot of the times. Like you're going to learn something from it. Maybe you're not going to completely succeed. Maybe you're going to go bankrupt, but you will have taken something from it
Yeah.
and then you can take that and move forward with your life. So I think that
Yeah.
was a long-winded way of answering, but yeah.
No, that's great. Made me think of a few things. One, I think, what we're talking about is growth mindset in a nutshell. It's the ability to think, okay, I can grow, I can learn, I can figure this out. I'll be better for things, even if the outcome isn't exactly what I wanted. I love that idea of high expectation, high warmth. And
Mhm.
it made me think, and this is a little like woo woo kind of, but like,
I
and
love
I'm
woo woo.
okay. So like, but I think we're all kind of parenting ourselves, as you become an adult, like you have to, right? Like you have to look out for yourself. You have to kind of parent yourself. And in the world we live in, right? There's so many resources. You can sit down and listen to podcasts like this. You could be around people like yourself virtually by consuming content, being around those conversations, and you can get those reminders of how to think, how to operate, what's possible. And I'll share a quick story because I grew up in a similar household where it didn't feel this way to me at the time, but I look back and it was what you talked about. So I was in middle school. I got placed in an honors math class. Granted, elementary school is elementary school, but I never got a bad grade. Middle school comes along, this math class, first test, I think I got a D or a C.
Scary.
Yeah, I came home in tears and I told my mom, hey, I want to drop down to regular math. And she said, yeah, no problem. And so I went up to my room, and a couple hours later, my dad came home and I heard him come up the stairs, his footsteps, and he said, Joe, you are not dropping down to regular math. He's like, you can do this. You're here for a reason. And he sat down on my bedroom floor and relearned geometry with me for like 3 hours after a long day of work. And I did better on the next one, and I stayed on that path. And I'm sure in part that led me down the path of going to PT school, etc. And it was like this high expectation, like, no, you're not going to quit just because it's hard, and high warmth in a way of like, I'm going to be here with you. I'm going to help you get there. You can do this, and I'm in it with you. And I think we have to be that for ourselves sometimes. And we have to find people to surround ourselves with who are like that as adults. And side note, making friends as an adult can be hard sometimes, but it's really worth investing in friendships and relationships that lift us up and keep us holding those high expectations with the warmth and support.
I agree. And it could apply to friendships. It should apply to relationships. And now that we're having this conversation, I'm also thinking like, I hope that that is how my employees feel that I operate as like the manager of a clinic, because I do have high expectations, but I also hope that they're having fun and I like to have a good time with them. So yeah, I think it can apply across a lot of facets of life, but it's funny how when you look back on your childhood, you really respect your parents, but in the moment, I was like, God, they're so strict.
Well, I don't know about you, like timeline wise. So I'm the oldest of three. My parents had me when they were uh 25, I want to say. Yeah, they were 25 when they had me. And growing up, I thought, okay, my parents have it all figured out. They provide for me, they protect me, they care for me. And
Right.
now talking to my parents, they're in their mid to late 50s. They had no idea what they were doing. They were just figuring it out. And this is the other point that I was hoping we can touch on, at least for a bit, right? You're a new mom. I followed your content. It's crazy to see that your energy does not seem to have changed at all, right? Like you're still running and jumping around, right? And you just had a
Yeah.
child 5 months ago. Tell me a little bit about maybe one challenge on the parenthood front, and also like what's the best part so far?
Oh, okay. I'll start with the best part is like this morning. It's like Christmas morning. I wake up and I see her on the monitor and she's just kind of waking up, and I go in there and I get her and she gets all excited. She's a very happy baby. And it's almost like her excitement to just be alive and to see mom and see dad and play with her toys makes me excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just so fun. So, gosh, there's so many positives. But yeah, just watching them do everything new for the first time, like it's so boring to anybody else. But as a parent, you're like, oh my God, her hand tracked to midline. She's grabbing an object. She's amazing. She's a genius. Challenges though, and I say this a lot on my podcast, but it's learning how to delegate tasks and time manage efficiently
Mm,
and still feel like I'm showing up enough as a mom and
mm,
also a business owner and a podcast and a wife and a friend. That's tough. Having a kid in the mix, she kind of all of a sudden is like my main priority. I'm like, I need to make sure she's good. But I had somebody on my podcast. He is a father of two and a pediatric PT, and he said something so interesting. I'll never forget. He said it's not about the quantity of time that you're spending with them, but more so the quality.
mm,
And so I've taken that and kind of run with it when it comes to days where I'm in the clinic and I maybe have an hour and a half in the morning and then a few hours at night, phones off. I'm not looking at it. I'm not talking to anybody else. I'm just like in her face and we're just cuddling. And that's quality time. And so I feel fulfilled at the end of the day, even if I didn't see her for the majority of it.
mm.
That's a good
That,
way to kind of overcome.
that's a great way to look at it.
Hmm.
A complete side note, but I think that like moments have so much power, and to be present in moments is so important. And there's this one memory I have from childhood. I've forgotten a lot of my life, which is crazy. At
Oh, it's
31,
sad. It's so sad.
it's scary. I'm like, when I was 7, like I don't even think I have a single memory I can think back to. I'm sure I
I-
do, but my grandmother was walking me to school. I was going on a little razor scooter. I don't know if you remember those, like they were cool back then. Yeah.
Mine had red wheels. Yeah.
I think mine had red wheels too. Yeah, best color
Yeah.
for wheels. Yeah. So I was scootering and she was walking next to me, and the school was off in the distance, and it was a sunny morning, and she just stopped and she looked at me and she said, "Joseph, don't ever forget this moment." And I was like 6, and I'll never forget it. It's like one of my clearest, most vivid memories ever. And I didn't spend a ton of time with my grandmother, right? But it was always quality. It was always quality.
Is she still around?
She is.
Does
Yeah,
she remember it?
she does. Yeah.
Oh, that's very sweet. Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah. And she got on social media a few years ago, and she hearts all of my stories. It's really cute. And I put a poll up because we just met, but I haven't had a mustache ever in my life. And I'm just like, you know what, for a year, I'm gonna experiment with it. So every once in a while I put up a poll on my story and like vote, like, should I keep it or should I shave it? And my grandmother doesn't vote, but she just messages me directly, shave it, period. So she's on my case.
I kind of don't mind it. I like it. I'm a big facial hair. I'm a supporter.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
it's working
Uh,
for you.
appreciate that. So, all right. Next question. This is the Project Endure podcast. So we talk a lot about endurance, and that word can mean different things to different people. I'm curious, when you hear the word endurance or endure, what does that mean to you?
I think it means to me, it means kind of like we've been talking about, kind of weaved into the whole conversation throughout the podcast, keeping my positive mindset and seeing things in a positive light, regardless of the situation. And just being able to accept, like, this is what's happening to me in this moment, even if it's not favorable. I've
Mm,
accepted it. And now what else? It was one unfavorable moment, but in the grand scheme of all these other moments that have made up my day, like, I can endure and it's going to be fine. So, yeah.
I like that. Now, I talk to a lot of different kind of people. Some are athletes, some are not. So of the athletes, a lot are in the world of endurance, so long distance running, etc. But some are not. And you mentioned your dance background, and I would just be curious: is there a life lesson that you feel like you've taken from the world of dance that maybe could be applicable to anyone and everyone?
Oh, 100%. Dance is the most fun form of cardio and probably the most enjoyable form of exercise, just like in general. Like, it's, I don't even think that's a super subjective. I bet you could find a study on, like, people enjoy dance more than any other form of
Hmm.
any type of exercise. It's the best. So dance. Make sure you're dancing. Dance in your kitchen, dance at the wedding. Don't be the one that's like on the sidelines. Get out there and get jiggy with it. You know what I
Okay,
mean?
so I need your advice. This is a selfish
Okay.
question. Okay. So, as we talked about, people who pursue professions like us tend to be a little bit more type A. I'm like type triple A.
Oh,
And
okay.
because of that, loosening up enough to dance well is tough for me. Just tough. Like, I'll dance at a wedding, but I'm like the small movements, like stay within my lane.
Little
Although,
shoulder.
yeah, shoulders. Every once in a while, I throw in the Macarena, and my wife hates it, but I think it goes with any song. And so,
Dance move. Yeah.
what's your best advice for loosening up when it comes to dance?
Same as with the social media. Nobody cares really what you're doing. Like, unless you're out there doing the worm, which is awesome. And so then they will care. It's almost more noticeable if you're like,
Mm.
a little uncomfy. So yeah, loosen up, have fun with it. I don't know, maybe take a tequila shot if that's your thing.
See, I don't drink, which is part of the problem. So,
Yeah. And
but
so I thought that was a nice social lubricant that would maybe made me dance more at weddings. Because sometimes if I'm at a wedding, I'm gonna have a glass of wine. I went to like 3 weddings while I was pregnant. Absolutely floored everybody with my dance moves. So I was like, okay, it doesn't need to be the alcohol. It can just be you like to dance and you're trying to have a good time.
I love it. Well, I'm going to work on that.
Yes.
And right now, for everyone else listening who is trying to work on themselves and different ways. There are people who are listening right now who are just going through, a tough time, a life transition. Maybe they're thinking of taking a risk or a leap, etc. For the people out there who just feel a little stuck or a little stiff or a little lost, if you could speak directly to that person listening who's feeling that way, what encouragement or guidance would you give?
Find the other people that are going through similar situations as you.
Mm.
It can be very isolating if you're thinking on a different wavelength than maybe the people around you are, or you're considering a career move that everybody else would say is crazy. Certainly, there are people on the internet, there are people in your community, even maybe some of your close friends that you just haven't opened up to that will be there to support you and are probably going through a lot of the same changes in life. I mean, I think we're in the same age group. You hit your late 20s, early 30s, and you start to kind of reevaluate everything. And I think that that's a very common theme. But find the people that are in the same boat as you and just talk to them. Have the courage to talk to them. That takes some courage. It takes some balls to do, but I think that is very helpful. And it's been helpful for me for sure.
Yeah. So living in Philadelphia, there I see a lot of stuff. And every once in a while you'll walk downtown and you'll see some guy who's out on the sidewalk and he's not listening to music, but he's just dancing. Like nobody cares. Like he's in his own world. And one of my favorite quotes is from Friedrich Nietzsche, who said, "Those who dance are considered insane by those who can't hear the music." And it's one of my favorite quotes because I think we're all dancing to our own music. And you're going to look crazy to the people who aren't listening to your music, who can't hear what you're listening to. But there are others. Like, go find the others because there are
Yeah.
plenty of people dancing to your music.
Oh, I love that, especially
Yeah.
because the whole entire podcast has had like a little dance undertone.
It has. It has. Now, that's my big last question that I ask guests. But I wanted to just give you an opportunity. If there's anything else that you feel like we didn't touch on that you think, hey, I just want to say this out loud, and like maybe it hits someone.
Yeah, you asked or you said you were a triple A type. And I'm curious what your experience has been over the course of your life because when I was younger, all my friends would describe me as like very type B. I'm very laid back, whatever, go with the flow. And I feel like that is still me, but then can your type change? Because also business Ronnie and content creator Ronnie and podcaster Ronnie is a little more type A. What's the line that we draw there? What even
Wow.
defines that? And then
Wow.
can you change?
It's a great question. You might just be type C, Ronnie. I don't know. We just made up a term. We just
Who
made up
am
a term
I?
for you. I don't know. I've always thought in my mind, right? Type A is like that's the organized, consistent, driven, control category. Type B is the go with the flow, relax, loosey goosey. And I think they can coexist, right? There's probably something in the middle. I would assume that you can change. And you know what? Actually, I'll say yes, you can change because my wife, type B, I'm type A. And over the course of our relationship, since I've met her over the 10 years ago, I've come toward the midline. Maybe I'm a double A. I'm not a triple A
Okay,
anymore,
okay.
right? And I think that's the beautiful thing about, being in any relationship, whether it's a marriage or it's just friendship, etc. You become more like the people that you choose to be around. And I think we can change as a result of that. And yeah, I think I'm type double A. I think you're type C. I stand by that.
I've created my own type.
There you go.
Yeah. And I also think it depends on what you're talking about showing up for. Like when I'm showing up for work, I'm gonna seem a little more type A. When I'm showing up to hang out with my friends, I'm like, I don't care what we do. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, you wear different hats depending on the situation, and you definitely can change because I think my husband, same. We've almost like we've through osmosis, we've like kind of joined personalities, and I've taken some of his, he's taken some of mine, and yeah, that's a beautiful thing. I love it.
Well, I'll just say this before I ask you one wrap up question, but it sounds like your husband, even though you mentioned him just a few times and I don't know him, sounds like an awesome, awesome human, and that you guys make a great team. And
He's the best.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I genuinely like he says I give him too much credit, but I'm like, I would not be here if it weren't for you. Like if I never moved out of Atlanta and got here and stayed with him, I think I'd still be working a corporate PT job and I would have married someone totally different who would just be like, yeah, I don't care, whatever. I just I don't owe him so much. I credit so much to him. He's a dreamer and I love that about him. And it's made me kind of lean a little bit more in that direction. It's very
Well,
fun.
whatever you guys are doing is definitely working. And, you know, for people who might be just knowing you for the very first time through this podcast and like, I want to see her pop off the page. Like, what is this social media we're talking about? Where's the best place for people to find you?
I would say I'm the most active on Instagram, which is Rehab with Roni, and that's pretty much the profile name for everything. Find me on Threads, Rehab with Ronnie, YouTube, Rehab with Ronnie, TikTok, Rehab with Ronnie, podcast, Rehab with Ronnie. Although I'm considering changing the name for that because I really don't talk that much about rehab. So maybe we can brainstorm after we stop recording.
There you go. Well, I will link things down below. And for now, just thank you again for this conversation and for the light you are in this world and everything that you do.
Thanks so much for having me. This was fun.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Indoor podcast, go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. And one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Indoor Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.